Hi, and welcome to Photography Tuesday, a very special time of the week where I focus on one quick tip, you learn something useful, and then go on with your day. Let's dive in. Today we're talking about shutter speed, your ability to freeze time or to caption beautiful motion. As the name says, shutter speed controls for how long your sensor is exposed to a certain scene. Shutter speed is measured in seconds, but most often fractions of a second. If you use a very fast shutter speed, you'll be able to freeze the motion. But if you take a long exposure, you'll be able to capture the movement of light. For example, 1,000 of a second. That's great for capturing sports. 1/500 will stop most motion. 1/250 of a second. It's enough to freeze people out on the street, so great for street photography. 1 second will give you a nice light trail or water motion. The main counter effect is that the slowliest that you shoot handheld will give you a bigger chance of getting motion blur. The general rule to avoid motion blur is to have your shutter speed to be double of your focal length. Some people say having the same number, I say double. For example, if you're shooting at 100mm, your shutter speed shouldn't be less than 1/200 of a second. This brings us back to the exposure triangle. If you leave your sensor exposed to more light, your photo is going to be brighter. If you're using a very fast shutter speed, your photo is going to be darker. In a situation where you have a lot of light, it's easy. Just make your shutter speed faster. That's done. But in the case that you want to capture the movement, that you actually need your shutter speed to be slower, then you might need one of these guys. That's an ND filter, and I'm gonna make a whole video just for it. In low light situations, you can either use a tripod to avoid camera shake, or you can balance the 3 settings of the exposure triangle. Yes, when you are on the situation of being on the edge of your shutter speed and your photos is still dark, that's when you start playing around with your exposure triangle. You can either open wider your aperture, bring more light in, or you can boost a little bit the sensitivity of your sensor, which is the ISO. Just remember, each setting has an effect and a counter effect. We already talked about the effects and counter effects of aperture last week, and we're going to talk about the ISO on the next one. For food photography, most of what I do is stay on the 200 of a second to 250 of a second. That's for standard shots. If I want to capture motion, then we start talking about 500, 600, 800 plus of a second. Unless we're using flash. Flash is a whole different universe, and we're gonna come back to it on a separate video just for it. For venue interiors, there are 2 situations. If I want to capture the whole venue nice and sharp and focused where I need a high aperture, then I'm gonna use this on a tripod on a half second or to 2 seconds. That's the margin. If I want to capture details and I'm handhelding with wide aperture, then 160 of a second to 250 of a second, something in there. Next week, we're demystifying ISO from clean photos to creative grain. I'll see you then.